At least it makes it easier for me to look all the way across the room. I at least have somebody to look at every point in between. So thank you for coming, for braving the cold temperatures and joining us for a time of worship. We have a really jammed service for you, and we have some activities today. 4 o'clock, our worship choir will begin their rehearsals for the Easter cantata, and so they will meet in the choir room, and we encourage you, if you're planning to be a part of that, to be there at 4 o'clock for their initial rehearsal. And then in addition to that, if you are interested in being in the choir and you haven't been before, Kathy would be glad to help you, and you can contact her directly or let me know. I'm pretty good at getting in touch with her. And we'll make sure you get the information that you need. At 5 o'clock, we're going to meet downstairs for dinner. I just had somebody who was in the early service say, "Hey, what are we having for dinner tonight?" And I said, "We're having fried chicken, mashed potatoes, gravy, green beans, salad, probably some kind of bread, I don't know, and then whatever desserts you bring." And so join us at 5 o'clock and we'll have dinner together. And then at 6 o'clock, we'll come up here for our annual meeting, hear the reports of the year that has gone by and some of the things that we've been about, as well as elect our new officers and directors for the coming year. And so we hope you will join us for that tonight. The other activities for the week upcoming are listed for you or have been on the screens for your advertisement. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact us directly at the church office. We're glad you're here and hope you're glad to be here. If so, stand up and greet one another. If not, stay seated and quiet.
Join with us as we sing, "Blessed Be Your Name."
Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name in the land that is plentiful, where streams of abundance flow. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name when I'm found in the desert place. Though I walk through the wilderness, blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. And when the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name when the sun is shining down on me, when the world's all as it should be. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name on the road marked with suffering, for the pain in the offering. Blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. You give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name. You give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name in the land that is plentiful, where your streams of abundance flow. Blessed be your name.
In 1 Peter chapter 4, it says this, verses 7 through 11. The end of all things is at hand. Therefore, be self-controlled and sober-minded for the sake of your prayers. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. Show hospitality to one another without grumbling. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Whoever speaks as one who speaks oracles of God. Whoever serves as one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. To him belong glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Last week, our message was centered around Colossians chapter 1. And this morning, I just felt that it would be good for us to have that scripture just prayed over us. And so that's what I'm going to do. I want to invite you to bow your heads and close your eyes. I'm going to pray Colossians chapter 1 over us this morning as we close. We have not ceased to pray for you, asking that you may be filled with the knowledge of His will and all spiritual wisdom and understanding, so as to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing to Him, bearing fruit in every good work, and increasing in the knowledge of God, being strengthened with all power according to His glorious might, for all endurance and patience with joy, giving thanks to the Father who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of the saints in light. He has delivered us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of His beloved Son, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins. Amen.
Today we're doing something that's different, and I wish there was a way for me to arrange these things to coincide with the dates and the service times and all the experiences and circumstances, and sometimes it's just not possible. Today represents a day that is being observed throughout our country and in many parts of the world. In 1984, Ronald Reagan established the Sanctity of Life Day. He chose January 22nd. The reason he chose January 22nd is that's the day that the Supreme Court upheld Roe versus Wade. From that point forward, many of us have worked diligently to see that measure overturned. Sanctity of Life Day was moved from the 22nd to whatever Sunday is closest to the 22nd. And so every year we observe Sanctity of Life Sunday, and we often have information in our Sunday school literature. I have on occasion preached. We've had other emphasis. It's rare that we would miss a special emphasis for the sanctity of life. In 2024, our state voted a measure into law that was titled Amendment 3. We had encouraged you to vote no, and I know most of you did. Sadly, that wasn't enough. By a very narrow margin, that motion passed. And in so doing, it took away all of the gains that pro-life people and legislators and others had done. What is even more significant is that in 2022, Roe versus Wade was overturned. And at a time when we should have been celebrating great advancements in these measures, we found ourselves in Missouri literally starting over. There is a group of people that have put together, in concert with our legislature, Amendment 3 once again. But this time, Amendment 3 is to repeal the measures of the previous amendment that passed in 24. In October, the Missouri Baptist Convention met in Branson. We were there for that meeting. Kathy and I voted to support a resolution along with Craig and Kendall, who were your messengers in that meeting, a resolution encouraging churches and members of those churches to support Amendment 3 in 2026. But because of the use of the same term, because of the issues at hand, there's a lot of confusion. And so I've asked someone who can give some clarity to this to come and share with us today. Now, I am accused on occasion of stepping out of my lane. And there are some who would say that me talking about a measure that will involve a vote of the state of Missouri is a political issue and has no place here. And what I say to that is that abortion is not political, it is moral. And that matters of life belong to God alone. And I don't care what party you belong to. I don't care how you voted last time or whatever you're going to do next time. I have to answer to an authority that extends well beyond any of our reach. And my responsibility is to tell truth. And I'm telling you the truth is, life matters to God and it all belongs to God. And that includes the unborn or the aged and everybody in between. And it is our responsibility and privilege to be a part of that. And so Amy DeClue has been very much involved in this. She has worked diligently in 24 to defeat the terrible measure that was represented by the then Amendment 3. She is now working once again to pass a measure to repeal those decisions. And I've asked her to come. Amy, you come and share with us regarding this matter.
Okay. Like Scott said, my name's Amy DeClue. Most of you likely know me or my husband Ron. If not us, then you know our children. We've been going to Temple for the last 18 years. As he said, in 2024, I got very involved with pro-life groups like Missouri Right to Life and Missouri Protects to attempt to defeat the abortion amendment, Amendment 3, 2024. Unfortunately, it passed in November of 2024, and when it did, I was asked to be a part of a pro-life roundtable so we could regroup and re-strategize. This pro-life roundtable included Missouri Right to Life, Missouri Protects, and Coalition Life, including the Senator Schnelting, who is responsible for a large part of the verbiage you'll see on the new Amendment 3. Hold on. Okay. So I'm going to go over just a little bit of Missouri's pro-life history. In 1825, Missouri passed its first anti-abortion law. And fast forward to 2018, Columbia and Kansas City Planned Parenthoods had to close due to a failure to comply with regulations, such as keeping clean equipment. Columbia was found to have mold and bodily fluids on their abortion equipment in their facility, and so they were shut down. The other thing they had struggled finding is a physician who had hospital privileges in a nearby facility in case there were complications. In 2019, Missouri passed a heartbeat bill that included a trigger law, which meant that it would go into effect if Roe versus Wade were ever overturned. And thankfully, on June 24th, 2022, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, activating our ban on abortion after 8 weeks. So Missouri has never had pro-life protections in its constitution. Anything we've had has been passed by the legislature. The legislature has passed 50-plus pro-life laws over the last 60 years, and unfortunately in 2024, with the passage of Amendment 3, all of those were blocked. Let's see here. As Scott said, it was a very narrow win, with 51.6% voting yes and 48.4% voting no, with a total difference of 95,637. Also, because of Missouri's initiative petition process, Amendment 3 only passed in 7 out of 114 counties in Missouri, including the city of St. Louis. Okay, so Amendment 3, 2024 removed facility and physician health and safety standards for abortions, physician requirement to provide informed consent, the right to sue for malpractice, injury, or death with these procedures, parental consent for children seeking abortion or gender-altering surgeries and medications, and I'll discuss with you why people have an issue with me and others saying that, but I'll explain why we believe that. And a ban on taxpayer funding abortions, the ability for the legislature to pass legislation impacting reproductive health care. So because of the passage of Amendment 3 in 2024, in February 14th of 2025, a Jackson County Circuit Court judge, Jerry Zeng, ruled that health and safety standards in Missouri were too restrictive and blocked them. This included standards for how rooms and hallways were to be kept, for pelvic exams prior to the abortion procedure, the 72-hour wait law, where women had to wait 72 hours before having an abortion, and informed consent laws that required patients to be given certain information prior to their abortion. Amendment 3, 2024 legalized abortion up to 9 months for any reason, even after a baby feels pain, which is around the 24th week of gestation. Now, on to the chemical castration and puberty blockers and gender procedures for children. So if you look at Article 1, Section 36 of the Missouri Constitution, the previous Amendment 3, you will see that it never states an age limitation, and it does not mention the word woman anywhere in the article, and it doesn't mention the word female anywhere in the article, leaving it open to the possibility of providing these services to minors. There are groups like Abortion Action Missouri that only waited a few days after the passage of Amendment 3 to declare that reproductive health care rights included transgender rights. If you look at Planned Parenthood's website, they offer gender-affirming care, including hormone replacement, puberty blockers, and surgery referrals. And although we were handed at least a temporary victory on Tuesday, January 13th, when the Missouri Supreme Court ruled it would uphold the SAFE Act, banning gender-affirming care for minors, it did so based on other parts of our Constitution and left Article 1, Section 36 untouched. It could still be used to invalidate future cases. So Amendment 3, 2026 restores parental consent for children seeking reproductive health care, including abortions. It states in the amendment, in the case of a minor under the age of 18 years, no person shall knowingly perform or induce an abortion unless the attending physician has obtained the written consent of the minor and a parent or legal guardian, and documentation of the consent is retained in the minor's medical record. It restores a ban on taxpayer-funded abortions. It says no public funds shall be expended for the purpose of performing, inducing, or otherwise assisting in any abortion, except in cases of medical emergency, rape or incest, and otherwise authorized by law. It restores a ban on fetal organ harvesting. It says fetal organ harvesting after an abortion is not permitted under any circumstances. And it restores informed consent. It says, except in cases of a medical emergency in which consent cannot be obtained, no abortion shall be performed or induced upon a woman without her voluntary and informed consent given freely and without coercion. It also restores the legislature's ability to enact laws. It says the General Assembly shall have the authority to enact laws to carry out the provisions of this section. It protects women. It reinstates health and safety standard laws for abortion facilities and providers. And it restores a woman's right to sue a physician or healthcare facility if harmed during the medical procedure. The General Assembly may enact laws that regulate the provision of abortions, abortion facilities, and abortion providers to ensure the health and safety of the pregnant mother. It protects children. It prohibits gender transition surgeries, cross-sex hormones, or puberty blockers for children under 18 years of age. It says no gender transition surgeries shall be knowingly performed on children under 18 years of age, and no cross-sex hormones or puberty-blocking drugs shall be knowingly prescribed or administered for the purpose of gender transition to children under 18 years of age. Amendment 3, 2026 ensures that women receive emergency medical care for things including ectopic pregnancies and miscarriage. It says a woman's ability to access health care in cases of miscarriage, ectopic pregnancies, and other medical emergencies shall not be infringed by the state. It ensures that physicians are required to provide medically accurate information. And it ensures the ability to seek an abortion for rape, incest, medical emergencies, and fetal anomalies. An abortion may be performed or induced upon a woman in cases of medical emergency, fetal anomaly, rape, or incest. In the case of abortions performed or induced in cases of rape or incest, the abortion may be performed or induced no later than 12 weeks gestational age of the unborn child. So this is where a lot of people, well, some people in the pro-life community have an issue. They are not for the exceptions. However, Missouri Right to Life extensively polled the populace after Amendment 3 2024 passed, and they found that 11% of voters who generally vote with the pro-life crowd voted yes on the abortion amendment in 2024. They said it was due to the need for exceptions. Missouri Right to Life also extensively polled Amendment 3 2026 and got the verbiage just right to where it'd have the greatest success or the greatest chance of passage and save most lives and protect women and children. Amendment 3 2026 ensures that medical emergency applies to life-threatening physical condition of the mother. It states that a medical emergency is a condition based on reasonable medical judgment so complicates the medical condition of a pregnant woman as to necessitate the immediate termination of her pregnancy, to avert the death of the pregnant woman, or for which a delay will create a serious risk of substantial and irreversible physical impairment of a major bodily function of the pregnant woman. Amendment 3 2026 ensures that abortions will be prohibited based on diagnosis, test, or screening indicating disability. It says no abortion shall be performed or induced upon a woman based on a prenatal diagnosis, test, or screening indicating a disability in an unborn child, except in cases of a fetal anomaly. And a fetal anomaly is described as a structural or functional abnormality in the unborn child's gestational development that would make life outside the womb impossible. So it does not include things like trisomy 13, trisomy 18, Down syndrome, cleft lip and palate, clubfoot, all the things that we've heard. It would have to be absolutely impossible for the baby to live outside the womb for it to be included. Reasons women seek abortions. According to the Charlotte Lozier Institute, this is the breakdown of why women seek an abortion. 0.4% seek an abortion for rape and incest. 0.3% for risk of the mother's life or major bodily function. 1.2% for an abnormality in the unborn baby. 2.2% for other physical concerns. And 95.9% of women seek an abortion for elective or unspecified reasons. So you can see why Amendment 3 2026 would help to save a large majority of babies. There's another subject that I put in here to discuss. It's the abortion pill and how it harms women. Our legislature at this current time, because of Amendment 3 2024, is unable to legislate anything that has to do with reproductive health. And we need to give them back the ability to do so, because the abortion pill mifepristone that is responsible for so many early abortions has horrible side effects. According to Ethics and Public Policy Center, 10.93 or almost 11% of women experience sepsis, infection, hemorrhaging, or another serious adverse event within 45 days of following a mifepristone abortion. And these women can get them through the mail, they can get them through telemed, they don't necessarily have to see a physician in person to get these medications, and it's very dangerous. This is the ballot summary you'll see. It says, shall the Missouri Constitution be amended to repeal the 2024 voter-approved amendment providing reproductive health care rights, including abortion through fetal viability, allow abortions for rape and incest under 12 weeks gestation, emergencies, and fetal anomalies, allow legislation regulating abortion, ensure parental consent for minors' abortions, and prohibit gender transition procedures for minors. This is a group of people and organizations that are working together to help pass Amendment 3 2026. Many of them you probably recognize, as Scott said, the Missouri Baptist Association ended up passing in favor of it. They were going to support it, which is huge. And we have people like Coalition Life, Missouri Right to Life, Her Health, Her Future, Freedom Principle, all these people working together. So in conclusion, when Amendment 3, 2024 passed, it brought an extreme abortion free-for-all to our state. It is time we rein in these extreme measures and restore life, safety, protection for women and children, and common sense legislation to our state. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy. Very well done. I consulted Amy in 2024, and she was able to get us some of the signs that we posted outside. I had a person that came to a funeral dinner that we had for one of our folks, and this person had come back for the meal. Didn't go to this church, said, hey, I noticed your signs, and I kind of braced myself because I didn't know what was coming next. And she said, I'm really pleased to see that your church is doing that. She said, I went to my pastor and asked if we could put signs in the yard to vote no on Amendment 3. And he told me no, that we don't do politics here. And I said, I guess it comes down to how you view it. I don't view it as politics. I view it as morality and biblical authority. I said, life is God's, and He's given it to us as a gift, and He is calling us to protect it and to care for it. And I said, this is an issue that doesn't belong in that realm alone. It belongs to all of us. And so I thought, well, on this Sanctity of Life Sunday, what better way for us to talk about this than to have a presentation that Amy could bring, as she's once again heavily involved in helping to encourage people and to teach people. We debated this resolution at the Missouri Baptist Convention in October. Amendments were offered to the original resolution, and what came to the floor of the convention, and we had about 1,000 people there voting, was again debated and amended, or attempted to be amended. The issue wasn't over whether or not we wanted to repeal 2024 Amendment 3. The issue was over the exception rules that she mentioned. Those exception clauses are often used as loopholes. And so we had this big debate. But Missouri Right to Life, as she pointed out, had already done extensive polling and surveys regarding this, and in communication with our Missouri Baptist Christian Life Commission and the Resolutions Committee for that convention meeting in October, the decision was made that this is our best opportunity to win and to regain control of these measures and these issues and protect these babies. And so I encourage you to vote yes on Amendment 3 in the fall, if that is in fact when it comes. We'll get confirmation of that very soon, and you'll hear more about it. If you have questions, or if you'd like to know how you can be involved in helping to pass this measure and to restore pro-life measures in our state, certainly get with Amy. She can help you with that. She has connections to these groups that are working diligently in our area and region and across the state. And then beware of anyone who's coming up to you asking you to sign a petition to support some measure or whatever. Most of the people doing that that were able to get the 2024 measure on the ballot came from out of state and were being paid to collect those signatures by abortion rights groups. They're still at it, and so be careful. All right, thank you, Amy. I appreciate the church's support, and I hope that this will be something that will be informative for you and give you some understanding as we move into more direct communication in the future. This day is also significant for me personally. And I want to take this opportunity to say thank you. Thank you to you as our church family. You are more than just a church family. You're the Perry's family. Now, you don't have to be a Perry. I know some of you don't want to be, and that's fine. But you have to understand it from our point of view. Pastors and their families, they usually have to rely on the grace and kindness of the church family to supply all the aunts and the uncles and sometimes the grandparents and the people that help support them as they grow up. And you have been that for our family, and now you are that for our grandchildren. And so this day is significant, and I want to say thank you for the life that we've had to live and to share with you. And I want you to know that I would not have it any other way, and I am deeply grateful and overwhelmed as we are so blessed to have been a part of this now on this day, marking 39 years. So when I started this little thing in the early service, I think some of them thought I was going to resign, and there was mixed emotion. I mean, some were excited, some were sad, and it was kind of hard to read. And then when I told them, no, I'm not leaving yet. So 39 years ago, on January the 18th, 1987, I stood in this pulpit for the very first time. It wasn't the same one, and it wasn't in the same location, but it was the same church. We have grown together. We have been through a great deal together. We have more to go, and we are not done. And so I just wanted to pause on this auspicious occasion and say thank you. The men on Wednesday morning surprised me. Kelly Kruger kind of orchestrated that because he's aware of these things, and his wife reminded him that that was the week of our 39th anniversary. And so he took some time in our meeting on Wednesday morning to offer some congratulations and to give the men an opportunity to share. And they were all so gracious and encouraging and grateful. And I just helped thinking on the rest of the week, man, if anybody should be thankful, it should be me. And because it has been such a privilege, and it continues to be such a joy to be a part of this church family and to serve as your pastor. So thank you for that. And I'm looking forward to more, not 39 more, but more. And so there is one other thing, though, that is coming up in addition to some of the stuff we've talked about today, and that's in 2027. And so in 2027, I will have been here 40 years. But there's something else that happens in 2027, and that's in September of that year. This church will be 100 years old. And so we are already talking about and thinking about a celebration that will take place when that time arrives, but we will be looking forward to honoring that. If God sustains me until then I'll have both the privilege of having been the pastor here for 40 years and being a part of a church that's 100 years old. I didn't influence half of its existence, but almost. And so that's, you just don't understand probably how rare this is. Pastors don't stay either because they don't want to or they're not allowed to. And we understand that. When I came here in 1987, the average tenure for a Southern Baptist pastor was 2.5 years. And so we have blown that all apart. I'll never forget Vernon Maxted. We had our 60th anniversary that year in 87, and I met him for the first time. He said, so what are your plans? I said, I have no idea. I said, just trying to kind of get my feet on the ground and figure out direction now. And I said, I really am astounded at your record of tenure. And he said, yeah, I was the longest tenured pastor in the history of the church. And at that time, it was 15 years. And he looked at me and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, but you're going to blow that all apart. And I said, in my mind, you are out of your mind. That'll never happen. And here we are. So I also want to say I apologize for the way this service is. It's asking you to think about a lot of things, and that's hard to do. It's asking you to shift those thoughts and emotions to a lot of things, and that's hard to do. But I know you can do it, and all of this is important, and all of this is significant. And so please understand that I do as well, and that I just feel so strongly about these issues and about these things. I told the group this morning, I'm not a kid dad. I never was a good kid dad. I'm not a good kid guy. The little kids, I don't know what to do with them. They're annoying and they smell bad, and they're like a walking disaster area. Everything's just in chaos and disarray. But God gave me a wonderful woman to share life with, who is a great kid mom and kid woman. And so between the two of us, we get balance. And while I may not have the relational skills with children that so many of you do, and things may come harder to me in that regard than they do others, I want you to know that one thing I am a kid protector. You may not want me to be the nurturer, but if there's a threat, you want me to be the protector. I will guard your children with my life as I would my own. I can't talk about the little ones without emotion. The very precious nature of children, especially infants, the joy, the celebration. I have been asked to do a lot of things and to help people in some of the worst of circumstances. I get all the grace that is needed to do that, and I never hesitate. People are comforted because of what God does through me, not because of me. And they are helped in their trial because of the peace that God can bring through someone who's willing to walk into the mess. And I can leave, go back to whatever it is I'm doing, and not be harmed, even though I don't forget. God provides everything that is necessary, not only to confront, but to carry. My weakness are those moments where I have sat with a mom and a dad as they held a stillborn baby. And I am overwhelmed with a broken heart. And when I see the sadness of those who desperately want children but don't have them, or I see the conviction and commitment of those who adopt children in order to rescue, restore, and give them a home and a family, I'm reminded of what God does for us. And so when the idea that someone would cast aside a little one, even before that little one comes into this world, I think of Jeremiah in his profession that God knew him even before he was formed in the womb, and he was fearfully, wonderfully made, that our names are written in the Lamb's book of life from the foundation of the world. I'm reminded of all these things, and it just teaches with such great specific clarity that God has given us a heart for life by giving us life. I don't want this to just be about a legacy or all these other things. In Amendment 3 and the measures that we're going to be dealing with, those all require strategy and they require processes and so forth. But in the heart of that, there's people, there's children, there's families, there's moms and dads. And there are people who had an abortion who need to know that God still loves them and that His grace is sufficient for them and that forgiveness and healing and hope are possible. And so from one end of the spectrum to the other, I want us to be I want us to be that kind of church because I want to be that kind of person, that kind of pastor. And you've allowed me to do that. And you've allowed me to do that for 39 years. And I'll keep doing it. And I'm so grateful for the privilege. Not every pastor in a Baptist church gets to do what I do or has the confidence and freedom to do what I'm doing right now. And that's because of what God's doing through you. So thank you for that. All right. I'm going to find a Kleenex. I know this is being broadcast live, but I'm going to get chewed out at home for wiping my nose on my finger because my wife hates that, and I didn't bring anything to prevent it. And so put that on mute, please. Timing's everything, Mike. I know. I don't care. I figured they did. So let me share with you very briefly a conclusion to what I started last week in a prayer for a new year. In Colossians 1, verses 12 through 14, we have the conclusion of that. I'll skip a little bit of some of the stuff that I had prepared as introductory, but suffice it to say that when you read verses 9 through 14, you're reading a prayer in which Paul is offering gratitude and thanksgiving for the fact that these believers in this church have responded to the gospel so amazingly and aggressively and with such joy and excitement. And so he pauses and he just offers this prayer of thanksgiving. Then he starts in verse 9 that we looked at last week, and he gives them some instructions, and he tells them there's some things he wants them to do. And what he's telling us is that the gospel saves and redeems us, changes us from death to life, and brings us into the family of God. But that's not where it stops. It's not just about what you've received or what you have experienced in the past. It's about who you're becoming as you move forward. And so Paul's instructing them about good works. He's talking about living a life worthy of the Lord, that they're to live in a manner that is pleasing to Christ. He talks about all the good works that are prepared from beforehand for us to be engaged in, that are described for us in Ephesians 2. Things like this that remind us that when we talk about salvation, we're also talking about our service. When we understand that we are redeemed, we also understand we become a reflection. And the idea that salvation is something that God performs in the life of a person who's redeemed so that they can just sit around and watch everybody else do stuff is completely contrary to what the Bible teaches. He's calling us not only to understand our transformation, but also our privilege of obedience, so that what we say should be reflected in what we do. Who we are should be a reflection of what we value above all else. And so as we look to the new year, as we think about the prayer that is represented here that Bradley prayed over us and how eloquent it is, but also how practical it is, it reminds us that we are to be about the business for which God has called us. To that end, there's a couple of things. First of all, a new purpose. Listen to what he says in verse 12. Giving thanks to the Father who's qualified you to share in the inheritance of the saints in light. And so just as he started with thanksgiving, he now concludes with it. But now it's not something that he's offering. He's saying, you be thankful. He's saying that this is a part of the things that he's already talked about. And so when he's talking about living a life worthy of the Lord, being pleasing, bearing fruit in every good work, increasing in the knowledge of God, understanding the will of God, he says then also be thankful. Why? Because thanksgiving and gratitude is a reflection of humility and dependence of faith. Those who are ungrateful are probably filled with pride and without any sense of responsibility before God. We do not tell God what to do. We do not direct how our faith is going to look. We don't do all these things. We respond with obedience and following Jesus. We are disciples of the one. This is a purpose that I think we sometimes lose sight of. It says, be grateful. Do you teach your kids to say thank you? Of course you do. If you don't, shame on you. You say, well, they do it begrudgingly. I don't care. As long as they do it. Because they won't forget that they did it. And if it becomes habitual, they'll keep doing it. And the more they do it, the more they understand that they are grateful to someone else who provides something that they can't. We have enough spoiled brats in the world. We don't need any more. Teach them to have a grateful heart and be grateful yourself. Gratitude to God is an instructive statement that Paul gives in order to help the believers live the way God would have them to. But notice that God is the focus of our thanksgiving. The purpose, he says, is that he has qualified us in a way that we otherwise wouldn't be, to share in the inheritance of the saints in light. The word qualified speaks to the special work of grace that enables us to be a part of God's kingdom work. In other words, before we weren't qualified. Now, because of his redeeming work, we are qualified. It means that there is a responsibility. If you have a qualification to meet a particular requirement of a job, that means that you're trained and you have experience in carrying out that job. That's why you're qualified. And so it means that you're going to do something with that qualification. There are all kinds of implications that come out of this. And essentially what he is saying, he's equipped us in order to be the people that he has called us to be in a world of darkness and a dominion of corruption. I think this is something that reminds us that, hey, we got some stuff to do. I don't know about retirement. I don't have specific plans at this point. I keep thinking, what would I do? And I don't know. I don't want to play golf every day. Maybe not any day. I don't even want to hunt and fish and do stuff like that all the time. I like doing this. I think I would be bored. And you do know that the most dangerous thing on planet Earth is a bored man. I would be uniquely toxic. I need to be about the purpose for which I've been made. This is what I've been made to do. Now, when I can't do it properly, or I can't do it in a way that is going to be beneficial, then some of y'all are going to have to make me stop, because I may not recognize that. The idea is that there is no retirement or letdown in following Jesus. It may look different. It may be carried out in a way that is completely different than it was maybe when you were younger or at a different stage of life. We don't quit. There's no quit. And so he's calling us to be actively engaged in the work of grace. And so he tells us he's qualified us for that purpose. He has worked in our lives in order to equip us to share in the inheritance of the saints in life. That's not just about an inheritance as a member of the family of God that's going to come when this life ends. It's not just about tools and skills. It's about inclusion in the family of God as children who are heirs together with Christ. This is the language of relationships between God and between fellow believers. The inheritance of light then is contrasted with darkness, and it speaks to blessings that are both immediate in our present lives, but also distant as we look to the one to come. And so there's purpose in all of it as the church is identified with Christ in both belonging to him as well as now continuing to do what Jesus did. Purpose now has to do with who we become, what we are to be about. And by anchoring our identity in Jesus with our behavior in response, he shows how that over the course of life he makes us new. And he gives us new things to do that reflect him. We have a new purpose. We have a new position. Verse 13 says this: He has delivered us from the domain of darkness, transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son. Having a new identity and purpose from God, believers are also repositioned to serve that purpose. First, we are delivered from the domain of darkness. Words like delivered and transferred bring to mind the work of an outside force as necessary for both. People cannot deliver themselves any more than they can transfer themselves. The work of grace is always dependent on the power of God. The domain of darkness refers to the world of chaos. One writer says that he thinks of three words when he thinks of the world in this biblical definition. It is chaos, evil, and judgment. The influence of darkness, apart from the transformation of the gospel, is like the oppression of people who are bound in slavery. Sin captures the heart and mind and can only be broken by a more powerful deliverer. The language is kind of like what we see in Exodus. He says, say to the Israelites, I am the Lord. I will bring you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians. I will free you from being slaves to them. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with mighty acts of judgment. I will take you as my own people and be your God, and you will know that I am the Lord your God who brought you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians, and I will bring you to the land that I swore with uplifted hand to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give it to you as a possession, for I am the Lord. Over and over, you hear the same kind of language being used that talks about deliverance from slavery, oppression, freedom, the provision, the relationship, and the property or the place. And so all of this, while it would have had a more specific application for the Israelites in the ancient world, it has a very strong implication for believers now, as that becomes a type of what we experience in Jesus. But just as God delivered Israel and led them to the covenant land of promise, he has now transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son. No longer slaves, but sons, by the grace of God. No longer captive, but free. The location of believers may not change, but the spiritual position most certainly does. This is what transferred means. The position that we hold now is in the kingdom of Christ. Paul doesn't talk a lot with kingdom language. Jesus did. Paul doesn't. He tends to be a bit more instructive or focused on particular issues that have arisen within the church through his letters. But every once in a while he does, and when he does, it's usually pretty profound. You have to think of yourself as belonging to a different realm. You have to understand that your origin and your identity is in Christ. Therefore, it influences everything that you do in this life. It changes not just who we are spiritually, it changes who we are functionally. And so he says, you have been taken out of the domain of darkness. You no longer are a slave to that. And you've been placed in the kingdom of Christ, which is filled with light and truth. That's who we are to follow. Doesn't mean it's automatic and doesn't mean it's always easy. It means we still live in a world that is broken and we're still broken people. But we're different. We're changed. And he says this is a great option or a great possibility for every option of availability. Everything that we do can be done differently now. So as we look to the future and as we pray for a new year, we do so out of the strength, not just of what has happened in the past, but of what he is doing right now and will continue to do in the future. Finally, in verse 14, he gives us a renewed perspective. He says, in whom we have redemption and forgiveness of sins. In the kingdom of Christ, our entire perspective on the world and our place in it changes dramatically. We are redeemed. The payment of righteousness and justice is the death of Jesus on the cross. He died to redeem us back from the dark world of our own sin. But he's also set us free from sin. Forgiveness is the cleansing work of Christ, who has taken our sins upon himself. We believe that when Jesus died, he paid the price for our sins, past, present, and future. Thus we stand forgiven and free of sin's curse. The use of the two terms redemption and forgiveness speak to the work of grace that satisfies all that is necessary for righteousness and justice, as well as all that is needed for cleansing. This is the perspective of the believer that changes our view of the world, our place in it, our hope in the future. If your faith in Jesus makes you harsh and judgmental toward sinners, you're doing it wrong. If your faith in Jesus makes you indifferent to the suffering of those around you, you're doing it wrong. If your faith in Jesus leaves you feeling prideful and arrogant about your own achievements or accomplishments, you're missing the point. Faith in Jesus doesn't do any of those things. Faith in Jesus gives a truthful understanding of who we are and how desperately we need him. And it gives us a sympathetic and compassionate outlook to the world around us who doesn't necessarily always agree with us and sometimes hates us outright. And it gives us a burden for those who are lost and destined for eternal hell. That's when we're doing it right. And that's what he has called us to. He set us free. He has forgiven and redeemed us that we may serve. These two together are important. Makes you wonder if what Paul is saying doesn't somewhat come from his own experience. When he was on the road to Damascus, he tells the court in Caesarea. He said, King Agrippa, I was on the road. I saw a light from heaven, brighter than the sun, blazing around me and my companions. We all fell to the ground, and I heard a voice saying to me in Aramaic, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? For it is hard for you to kick against the goads. And I asked, who are you, Lord? I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting, the Lord replied. And get up and stand on your feet. I have appeared to you to appoint you as a servant and as a witness of what you have seen and will see of me. I will rescue you from your own people and from the Gentiles. I'm sending you to them to open their eyes and to turn them from darkness to light, from the power of Satan to God, so that they may receive forgiveness of sins and a place among those who are sanctified by faith in me. His commission, his conversion, his salvation sounds just like ours. And it sounds just like the prayer he would later pray for the Colossians and all believers who would read it down the line. What he experienced changed everything that he did, that he understood, and that he believed. That is his prayer for us for this new year, is that our experience with Jesus will be the governing force for everything that we know, everything that we do, and all that we hold dear. I promise you, if we follow Jesus in that way, the church is unstoppable. It won't be easy. It won't be cheap. It won't be neatly fitted into your already crowded calendar. But I promise you, it will be worth it. Let's pray. Father, thank you for our time together. It's a lot to take in, to process, to consider. And I pray that your Spirit's grace would help us to do that. Father, lead us as we look to a new year, that we will do so with an anticipation of your work in our midst and through our lives. Father, use us as a church family and as individual believers to bring light into a dark world. Remind us that we belong to a greater kingdom, even than our own government. We belong to the kingdom of Christ. Father, help us as sojourners in this land to reach out, to show the love of Christ, to help others know him, and to share that redeeming work and that forgiving work in a way that liberates.